everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fridays with Fawn. I'm your host, Fawn Lopez, publisher of Modern Healthcare. We're back for another episode. Join me here today is Stephanie Mercado, Executive Director and CEO at the National Association for Healthcare Quality, or NAHQ. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
So let's get started. You held executive positions with two other healthcare associations prior to joining NAHQ. How did these positions or experiences help you to prepare for your role currently? And what was the secret, more importantly, to finding and building such a passion for quality?
Thank you for asking. So my first experience working in a nonprofit organization focused in healthcare was at the American Orthopedic Association. And actually, I was quite young in that role. I was 26 years old, but it was a small shop. And so I had a direct access to the CEO. One of the projects that I had the opportunity to get involved in was working with the orthopedic surgeons to reduce secondary fragility fractures. And I learned that we were going to approach that through a quality improvement initiative. And I had no idea what a quality improvement initiative was. And so I had the opportunity to work with a lot of people to figure that out. Interestingly, the CEO of the organization left to move to another organization right as the project was starting. And I looked at him and said, well, who's going to lead this project? It's so important. You know, we have this great grant and all of our physicians are lined up in support, multi-stakeholder engagement. And he looked at me and he said, you're going to lead it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I better, hop to it and figure this out. And so from a leadership perspective, that was a big moment for me, because I didn't have an upline in that regard. Mm-hmm. And I really had to figure out how to use my formal and informal networks to not only get the work done, but to figure out what the work was. And so I feel like that really helped me figure things out in an independent fashion and helped me build confidence that I could use informal networks to get things done and produce a great result. So that was a great experience.
That's great. And it's always diving into it and just, take the lead and try to figure it out. When you assumed the executive director position 8 years ago at NAHQ, the organization was on the decline, right? Since then, membership has more than doubled, revenue has tripled, and your staff has grown from 5 part-time employees to a staff of 31. So share with us what would you attribute these many successes to? I'm sure the experience at the former association was very helpful, but what else would you attribute these successes to?
So having had the experience at the American Academy of Physical Medicine was absolutely foundational in, preparing me for the role at NAHQ. And when I think about the growth that we've experienced and reflect on that and think, what does it take to do that? I think a couple things, just in terms of the mechanics of the business and sort of how do you do that? Number one, I think that you have to have a very balanced approach to strategy, operations, and governance. I think that NAHQ and I have done a really, really good job of keeping equal focus, but a strong on all of those things, but a strong emphasis on governance, and also, good market conditions. I think that 20 years ago, To Err is Human, came out. We've also seen a lot of work with the IOM and also the triple, and then coming after that, the quadruple aim. So there's been a lot of great groundwork for quality that has been laid. And I think that really interesting, like right now, nobody is disputing that we need to improve healthcare quality and improve safety. I would add that coming into an organization that is smaller and less resourced, but has huge potential, requires a lot of patience. And so there were a lot of times where I was really, kind of chomping at the bit to move the organization forward. And I had to remind myself to start where I was with what I had. And it became a mantra. I'm really big into mantras. And so 8 years ago, my mantra was start where you are with what you have. Start where you are with what you have.
Right.
I also think, perseverance was really, really important. I knocked on a lot of doors, and I think a lot of individuals and organizations, weren't quite ready for what NAHQ was bringing into the market. And so we continued with the patients, but also persevered and really made sure that people knew we were very serious about our mission and intended, to pursue that. And I think also to having a strong vision, letting people know where you're going and that they can come to and that they can be part of this really exciting adventure is one of the reasons we've had a lot of success. People stay with NAHQ because of that vision, and they come to NAHQ because they really want to be a part of it.
Unlike many of your peers and other healthcare leaders who tend to be more tenured in their careers, you're a Gen Xer who still has children at home. How do you feel this has shaped your approach to leadership?
So I have two active boys. I have an almost 12-year-old and an 8-year-old. So right now we're experiencing second grade and just entered into middle school, which is exciting. And my third boy, my man at home, is my husband, Brian. And in terms of how it shaped me, I think that I am very relatable to my staff from the perspective of having young kids at home. I don't just remember what it was like to have young kids at home. I actually have them at home. And so I very acutely understand that when I leave this job at NAHQ, at the end of the day, I go to my next responsibility, which is at home, to my kids, to my husband, doing the dishes, getting dinner ready, walking the dog, homework, forgot the lunchbox at the school, like we're in it. And, going to hockey practice and all that kind of stuff. So I think I can really relate to a lot of the young women in my organization. I can also say that I hope and think that I share with them an example of what is possible, because there is a lot going on in my world. And I think that it not only helps me be more empathetic to be a young woman leader, but it also helps me to be able to push and to make sure that people are my staff team are pushing themselves to say, this is possible, you can do it. And it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of organization, and it takes a lot of knowing, maybe I need to accelerate, on the work lever here today, but tomorrow I'm going to pull that back a little bit so I can walk my little one to school and get that really special time with him.
A lot of that is the kind of trade-off that we make, and to be okay with those decisions and the trade-offs, right?
It is. And I would say, it's interesting. Those trade-offs, I think have been, worked well for me and my family most days. I think that any person who is in my position, sort of young female leader with kids at home, would tell you that, there's some days that you feel like you've got this down and you're thriving as an individual, and everybody's thriving at home and everybody's thriving at work and everything, just feels right. And there's other days I joke with my husband. I say, "Oh my gosh, Mercado's hit the skids today. Like we got to reboot here."
About children, my understanding is also that you were 7 months pregnant when you interviewed for your role at NICU. Are you comfortable sharing that experience with our audience? What advice would you give to other women who are in a similar situation?
I'm more than happy to share that experience. So I received a call from the organization that was recruiting for the position, and they had reached out to me and said, Stephanie, we have the executive director role at NAHQ. It's, an organization dedicated to healthcare quality professionals and building competencies. And we're wondering if you'd be interested in interviewing. And so I said I would think about it and, look at the job description. So I took a look at the job description. I did some research on the organization. I saw what it was. and what I thought that it could be. And I looked at the role and I thought, this is my job, but I'm 7 months pregnant. And so in a follow-up call with the hiring manager, I said, listen, I looked at everything. I'm really, really excited about this role. When would you expect someone to start? And they said, well, we're looking for a September 1 start date. And I said to them, that would not work for me because I was 7 months pregnant and my baby was to be born right at the beginning of September. And so I said, I don't know, maybe this isn't going to work out. Very graciously, the individual who I was speaking with said, you know what, why don't you just come interview for this job? Because if you are the right candidate for the job, we'll wait for you. So that was amazing in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so I went forward with the interview. It was a little awkward in the first interview, 7 months pregnant, to figure out what to wear. It was even more awkward in the follow-up interviews when I was 8 months pregnant, meeting members of the board. But, you know, I powered through that. And I will say that it was an awkward experience, but I think really important because it showed me that the organization was committed to both me as a CEO and me as a person.
Yeah.
And not only that, I have thought a lot about, you know, would I do that again? Would I say those things? Would I disclose that so early in the process? And my answer is yes, I absolutely would, because when you're coming into a CEO role or any executive role, I think that it's all about being transparent and building trust with the people that you are going to work with and the people that you're going to work for. I do believe strongly, I think I'm proof that if you are the right candidate for the job, the organization will wait for you. And if they won't, it's not, it's for a reason. And all things, you know, work out for a reason. So it worked out for me. And I am happy to tell that story.
Good for the recruiter and the board. And look at you now, right? So they made the best decision they could have made. So
Yes.
Congratulations. Would you be willing to share an accomplishment that you're most proud of and one that shaped your career?
In terms of shaping my career, there's been a lot of things, but I think that one thing really left a lasting impression. And that is when NAHQ, who was initially managed by a managed services organization when I arrived at the organization, decided to leave the managed services organization so that we could become standalone. What happened was, as part of the agreement, we're going to be moving out quicker than expected. So I had 16 weeks to relocate NAHQ and basically start an organization from scratch.
Wow.
So step number one was figure out who from my team, my core team, was going to go with me. 9 out of the 10 people did take the leap of faith and came with me. They said, you go, I go.
Wow.
They believed in me. They believed in the board. They believed in the mission of the organization. So we were, you know, they agreed to come with me. But to where we weren't sure. We didn't have an office. We didn't have a database. We didn't have computers, phones, an ability to process credit cards. We didn't have payroll. We had nothing. We had no benefits. They said, how much money am I going to make? I said, same. They said, where are the benefits going to be from? I said, I don't know. They will be the same. And if you would like to help me figure out the provider, that would be awesome. And so we wrapped our arms around that challenge and left the organization. And the board also trusted me. I went to them and said, listen, this is going to happen sooner than we thought. I need your engagement. I need your trust. And I need your resolve to see this through. So they approved me to spend $2 million in 16 weeks so that we could not miss a beat. And our whole mantra, again, big on mantras, was no revenue disruption and no customer disruption. And we achieved both of those results. And in fact, when we left the organization, that managed services organization, we were about a $5.5 million organization. 4 years later, almost in February, it will be 4 years time that we have been completely independent. 2 of those years almost have been COVID years. And we have are looking at $10.5 to $11 million annual revenue next year. That was a big success from my perspective that has only, frankly, just begun to pay off. NAHQ has a lot of runway to really build and grow moving forward.
It speaks volumes for your leadership and for about trust, the trust that your board has in you, and then those 9 people had in you. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So in addition to helping providers to assess their workforces and better understand where the quality gap is in their organizations, when it comes to quality, you also help them to upskill their workers. Is that correct? And can you elaborate more on that for us?
How we support healthcare organizations is through a few different ways. Number one, we are able to come in and assess their teams to understand who is doing what work in healthcare quality. NAHQ has developed the first and only healthcare quality competency framework and validated that twice in the market, which was really a much needed standard, because before we created the standard, we know healthcare quality competencies, roles, structures have been developed on the fly at a local level without the benefit of a standard. And so what we do is we provide the standard, and we are able to assess individuals and organizations against that standard to see where there are opportunities to build skills and to build competencies so that we can really help organizations unleash their human potential. From there, we offer a lot of training. NAHQ has the only accredited certification in healthcare quality, which is now held by almost 14,000 individuals. And we also have other trainings that we deploy based on sort of where each individual sits in the healthcare organizations. We have a frontlines quality and safety training, which a lot of organizations are picking up and making a mandate for their organizations. Just like sexual harassment training, many organizations are saying and realizing, hey, we don't train our people, our frontlines people, on quality and safety, and we should. Define the standard, assess against the standard, and train against the standard is really the space that NAHQ occupies.
So if you were able to go back 10 years in time, 10 years, what would you tell yourself about leadership that you didn't know then?
What I didn't know was the amount, like I said, of the grit, the self-control, the discipline. And really, in reflecting today, I could say successful CEOs are not impulsive. They are not reactive. They do not project wild emotion. They should be authentic, but have to be steady. And I would also say need to be patient and kind. So yeah, that would be my reflection.
Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and sharing your story with us. It's been such a pleasure and a privilege to speak with you today.
You too, and I really appreciate that you invited me to participate in this with you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As always, I look forward to seeing you again on the next Fridays with Fawn. Please join us for our Women Leaders in Healthcare Conference, which will take place in July in Chicago. And until then, thank you.